Hi, my name is Jay Sugarman, and I want to welcome you to Innovation Showcase. The main purpose of this ongoing series is to inform viewers about exciting innovations and creative individuals across the fields of business, science, technology, education, and the arts. Today, via Zoom, we're fortunate to have as our guest Dr. Misty Heggeness. Misty is an associate professor of public affairs and economics at the University of Kansas, and she also serves as the co-director of the Kansas Population Center. Building on the incredible interest, fascination, and impact of Taylor Swift, Misty has developed a captivating curriculum called Swiftynomics 101. This innovative course of study engages students in economics education by building upon the relationship between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift's influence on the National Football League. Misty is also writing a related book entitled Swiftynomics: Women in Today's Economy, which will be published by the University of California Press in 2025. During the program, we'll be learning why and how the course and the book came about and what they have to offer students, educators, and the general public. In the process, we'll come to better understand and appreciate the incredible effect Taylor Swift and her music have had on both local and international economies. Let's start by meeting Misty and then finding out both about the course and her upcoming book. Welcome, Misty. So delighted you're able to be here.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here talking with you today.
You know, as with anything Taylor Swift, it was of high interest when I first read about your course. Eager to find out more and have you inform viewers. But before we jump right to that, I think it would be of interest if you'd take just a brief time to share maybe a little bit more about your background, professional interests, current positions, please.
So I'm currently an associate professor in the School of Public Affairs and Administration at the University of Kansas. I'm also an associate research scientist in the Institute for Policy and Social Research, also at the University of Kansas. And I co-direct the Kansas Population Center, which I founded with a colleague 1 year ago. I haven't been in academia and I didn't necessarily follow a traditional path into academia. So maybe it's good for me to give a little bit of background about
Please.
my prior lives. I worked in the federal government for 12 years post my PhD as a career researcher, an economist in Department of Labor, National Institutes of Health, and lastly at the Census Bureau. My PhD is in applied economics. So the majority of the work that I do and the things that I think about within the domain of economics are very applied in nature, which is one of the reasons why creating this curriculum was of interest to me and, not a big stretch.
You know, before we jump right into the curriculum and the course and the related book, I think it would be helpful just to maybe get an overview if you'd share what does Swiftynomics encompass?
Yeah. So it's a great question. And, I started this effort or thinking about what has been happening with Taylor Swift in our economy today, really through the lens of gender and the economy. So this idea of Swiftynomics, it's a little bit different than it deals with the economics of Taylor Swift and her business savviness, but it's more than just that. And so for me, Swiftynomics, and again, the Swifty part of it, really refers to her fans and all of the women who follow her and the economic power that these women have demonstrated through their passions and desires for consuming the type of music that she creates, for wanting to go and see her in person in the stadiums. So Swiftynomics for me is really about kind of the current genre of lived experiences of women as economic agents.
I know we'll hear maybe during the program some of the impact on the economies, on the NFL, some of the statistics that are related to Taylor Swift and the impact she's made on a number of different areas are mind-blowing. But focusing on the course now, what was your inspiration and motivation to come up with this type of curriculum?
Yeah, so I have this book called Swiftynomics, Women in Today's Economy, which is coming out in 2025, as you mentioned. And a lot of my colleagues know that I am working on this book, and I do a lot of research around gender and the economics of gender. And so I've been, for better or worse, really in the weeds of Taylor Swift pop culture over the past year or two. Just, because she is the muse for this book. And so, with all of the media hype around Taylor Swift, starting to date an NFL football player, and all of the chaos that has provoked within society, I started writing, outside of the work that I was doing for the book. I started writing short pieces describing, kind of through a gendered lens, and using economic theory to help us think about how society was reacting. And so I wrote a piece that came out in Fast Company, about Swifties, or Taylor Swift versus the NFL, which really just highlighted, the ways in which the NFL was making business decisions around how to react to all of the noise around Taylor and Travis. In a way that would minimize impact to their bottom line, and potentially, be beneficial, very advantageous to their bottom line. So I had a colleague who, read that piece, knew I was working on the book, and she was a part of an organization that focuses on developing content and workshops and webinars for high school teachers to help high school teachers teach economics in a way that's engaging for students. And so she asked me, since she knew I had been kind of deep in the weeds in everything that was going on, if I would be willing to develop some sort of curriculum tied to the Super Bowl, tied to the relationship between Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, and just put together some content that high school teachers could teach, either the week before or the week after the Super Bowl, to really help, take advantage of this pop culture moment to get students to really recognize how economics plays a part in every single aspect of our lives. So she kind of challenged me with that task, and I thought it sounded like so much fun. So I took her up on it. I agreed to put together, a curriculum, kind of pop culture event driven, and the organization that she was involved in, which is the Minnesota Council on Economic Education. I developed the webinar for them, and then taught it virtually about a week and a half before the Super Bowl. I put together a bunch of different styles of curriculum, both videos and other material, pop culture writings that would help teachers kind of engage their students. And then I put together some, you know, short answer questions that could be used in class. And I taught the webinar. There was I think 109 people signed up for it. So that was relatively large compared to the how many people they usually have sign up for these types of courses, or teachers sign up. And so I taught it, and then about a week later, less than a week later, you know, we were having conversations, and then just decided to put it, you know, make it publicly available for anybody who was interested in it. It's kind of a public good for the masses, and just you know, so that as many people as possible could take advantage of using it. And so that's where the original idea came from. And you know, it's gotten a lot of traction, and you know, I will be building off of it on my website, and you know, make that the additional chapters that are built off of it available as well for teachers.
Terrific, terrific. Well, I've had the good fortune to watch the webinar. I mean, it's excellent, and you're most generous with providing the webinar, but all the materials that you've uploaded that are accessible for teachers or others just to learn more about the topics is really a terrific resource, and very appreciative of that. What are some of the economic concepts that you try to get across in the curriculum?
Yeah, so I start with just 3 economic concepts. Again, you know, this was a webinar that I put together. It was an hour long. It was meant to be timed for, you know, teachers could use the material either just in one class, or they could span it out over the length of a week or 2 if they wanted to. But there were 3 main concepts that I focused on, which I think are of most interest and most tangible in the context of what was happening in terms of the reaction of society to Taylor Swift attending football games, and then the reaction of the NFL. And so the first economic concept is just very simple. It's all about the theory of the firm, right? And so the idea here is that firms will do whatever they need to do to maximize profits. You know, their bottom line is like the key reason why they exist, and it's the driving factor in how they behave.
Mhm.
And if we look at the example of the NFL's response, and so not only, well, I'll speak specifically about, you know, Travis Kelce has done a phenomenal job, you know, supporting Taylor Swift and dealing with some of the backlash. But it's not only him. You can look at Andy Reid, who is the coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, has come out on numerous occasions supporting, you know, Taylor attending the games, and her relationship with Travis. You have the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs also coming out in support of Taylor attending the games, in support of the relationship. His family gifted her a present. I don't remember if it was like around her birthday or some sort of holiday, but she went to a game and they gifted her a present. Maybe it was around Christmas time, holiday season. And then you have the NFL commissioner, Goodell, who also has been interviewed multiple times on national media, talking about how unique their relationship is and how she is always welcome to any of the games. Aside from that, you have at the very beginning, and whether I think it was late September, early October, when Taylor Swift first showed up at a game, you know, the NFL kind of on social media went a little bit crazy, right? So they started, you know, saying phrases and talking about how excited they were to have her there and showing her on TV. And you saw this slow burn of backlash from a subset of NFL fans who really did not want their normative mojo disrupted. Like, they knew what they liked about watching the football games on Sundays and Monday nights and now Thursday nights, and they knew their routine and they did not want that disrupted. And so so I think when you have a business that's as big as the NFL and as successful as the NFL is, and you have a set of really core fans who are dedicated to watching the games, they're dedicated to their teams and their players, and you have a subset of those fans being very, very loud, there's a high risk that the business will not bet on this new novelty because they fear losing their fans. And I am not behind the scenes at in the NFL buildings. I don't know what discussions they're having amongst themselves in terms of what is our strategy to handle this uproar from a subset of our core base. How are we going to deal with this? But I do think that it is the approach that they took was very, very interesting, unique, and a decade or 2 decades ago would never have happened. And so that leads us to ask why were they so willing to go to bat for this relationship and to try to kind of calm the angst around their base, and come out multiple times in support of Taylor Swift. And the answer, if you look at the data and you think about it, is really straightforward. So the NFL as a business model, and you can go back. One of the pieces that I have in my bucket of materials, potential reading materials for their curriculum, is a piece that it was, I think, in the New York Times about 2 or 3 years ago, talking about the NFL's desire to expand beyond its current base, that it wanted to generate more revenue, that it felt like it wasn't tapping into as many of the subpopulations and subcultures as it could, that it was worried about the youth of today not being really as dedicated to football and as fanatic about it, and worried about how can they capture a younger generation of dedicated fans. And Taylor Swift has a rather large, extremely dedicated younger generation of fan base that will do anything for her. And the NFL, I think, was very lucky because they recognized early on that the audience viewership was increasing every time she attended a game. That young girls who normally would never be interested today in football, so like my generation, I grew up watching football with my dad, but in today's younger generation, where everybody has social media on their phones, there isn't that Sunday afternoon connection in the home. Young girls aren't necessarily watching football with their dads today. They're on their phones, they're doing other things on social media. And so, I think it was a smart business move on the part of the NFL to recognize the added value that Taylor Swift could bring to their bottom line, and the added the contributions that it could make in the potential to create a younger fan base for the NFL. And they really just rode that wave. And somehow they were able to successfully do it against the odds of this really loud, traditional subset of fan base.
No, that's very interesting to hear that type of analysis and sort of backstory. What's been some of the reaction and feedback, either from educators, students, and others who have come across your course, maybe colleagues as well?
Yeah. Well, so I've gotten a lot of good feedback. I've received notes and emails from educators saying, I used your curriculum. Thank you. It was very useful. It's not only been used by high school teachers. I've received feedback from, college professors, professors in marketing who, teach marketing courses. And so I think the expansiveness of its value is pretty broad. The other piece too is that when you're a teacher, one of the most exciting things that can happen to you in teaching is that you're covering content that not only you're excited about, but that your students are excited about as well. And that's one of the attractive components here of tying pop culture into, kind of what traditionally is not such exciting content, is that, not only am I excited, to teach about this because I find the whole topic fascinating, but now I'm in a classroom with a bunch of students who have really passionate thoughts about this because it is all over the media and all over pop culture. They either generally will, really, really be dedicated to, being so annoyed that Taylor Swift is consuming any NFL air, or they're going to be really, really dedicated to this idea that, it's unfair that people are upset about that. Or they're somewhere in the middle, or they don't care. But if they're somewhere in the middle, they don't care, they've still been consuming all of this media hype about it. And so every student in the class can opine, every student in the class can have a discussion. And, we live in times right now where it feels like we're so divided, politically, just as a society. And this is one of those micro examples where people might be divided, but we can teach our students how to get beyond those divides by having a deeper, richer conversation about why we feel that way, why we think that way, why might the other side feel a certain way or think a certain way. And so this is kind of a safe topic in a safe space, to really test the boundaries and experiment around, having these types of conversations with our friends and our colleagues that, allow us to exercise a little bit our ability to think critically and interact with one another and hear each other.
Mhm. I know as a former educator, anytime you can connect your curriculum, the school experiences to the real world, just makes it that much richer for all involved, as you said, whether it's the
Yeah.
teacher, our students as well. In a few minutes we have left, would enjoy hearing more about the intent of your book, which really looking forward to reading next year.
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit about how the book came to be. You know, the book is a product of the pandemic, I will tell you that. So, all of the ways in which our lives changed drastically during the pandemic. For me, I'm a caregiver. I've got two kids, they're now teenagers, and a spouse. We were all stuck in our house together for months. And my kids did online learning for a very long time while I was working full time as a professional. And I really just became kind of obsessively passionate about, the struggles of caregivers in today's society, and thinking about, from an economics perspective, the ways in which policies either hinder or accelerate our ability to be successful in our lives, when we have really large caregiving responsibilities. So I wanted, to write a book about the experiences of women in today's economy, and with a focus on the caregiving space. And it just kind of evolved over time. There was a point that's how the idea started. And then I got really exhausted from hearing all of the negative news media and other information about how, women were going to leave the labor market in droves because of the pandemic, and
Mhm.
we weren't going to be able to recover. And I got really obsessive about following the data. I was at the time at the Census Bureau, and so tons of data at my, within arm's reach. And so I just started pushing out data and statistics about what was happening with moms who work and moms and the labor market. And it just, I started seeing early on in the data, moms came back to their pre-pandemic labor force participation rates faster than women of retirement age, faster than women of college age. And moms just really started accelerating. And so I got into this space where I wanted to write a book about the triumphs and amazingness of women today and how they choose to live their economic lives. Yes, given all the constraints, yes, given all the considerations, but I think we don't spend enough time appreciating how awesome women are and how strategic they are in thinking about their own lives, the lives of their children. And so this book is, and so Taylor Swift is the muse because, she comes from a very misogynistic industry. The music industry and entertainment industries traditionally have been very harsh for women, and have had lots of protocols that have really pushed down and stomped out women's innovativeness and women's talent. And somehow Taylor Swift has found a way to not let those barriers stifle her success. And she's really reclaimed her own talent and her own business savvy in a way that has allowed her just to flourish and become, this global mega pop star icon of, the century, like whatever you want to call her. She's just so
She is.
yeah, and I think those are the stories of women today that we don't tell these stories enough. It's not just Taylor Swift. So in doing research on this book, I've gone back and looked at the life story of Madonna, and it's like a different generation, but a very similar vibe. I've gone all the way back to Frances Perkins, who was the first female Secretary of Labor during the Great Depression. And again, these women who have thrived in their economic lives have very interesting and similar characteristics. And there's a lot of us out there. And, I just want us to spend at least a brief second focusing on how they've become, so influential in their own life paths, and what can we learn from that, and how can the rest of us learn anything from that?
Oh, wonderful to hear that. It's going to be making an important contribution to the field. So really looking forward to the upcoming publication. Well, Misty, unfortunately, we've come to the end of the program already. It's really been enlightening to hear about the work you've done with the course, the book, and your thoughts in general about women in particular and their roles in society today. So thank you very much and continued success with upcoming and future endeavors.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Also want to thank those of you watching for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next time.